This edition of Mac Voices is brought to you by Harry's, the shaving gear you will respect, not throw away. To get $5 off your first order, go to harrys.com and use the offer code MacVoices. Welcome to the MacJury on Mac Voices. This is the Talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, first of all, I'll apologize for my audio and video. I'm not in my home studio. I'm recording from an undisclosed location somewhere in Maryland for reasons that we're not going to even get into. But suffice it to say, we wanted to make sure we convened a MacJury to talk about the Apple announcements today, so here we are. So let's find out who's here, first of all. On the left of my screen, Mr. Jeff Carlson. Jeff, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's good to have you, and I really appreciate you staying up. Well, for you, it's not staying up real late to get this done, but we'll have a little fun.
Yeah, I'm on the West Coast, but we had to go through the daylight saving time ordeal, so who knows what time it is, really.
Yeah, I think we're all suffering through that, no question. You are Tidbits, you are an author, you're a digital photos guy, you do a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lately I've been writing a lot for lynda.com, and I've written for Macworld and Tidbits, and I write a column for the Seattle Times, and I write books. Wrote a book with Dan Morin called The Apple Connected Apple Family, sorry. And I have another book coming out today that perhaps we'll talk about, but I'll just leave that for now.
Yeah. Or we can just talk about it another time and keep everybody guessing. How's that?
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea. Also with us, Mr. Mike Rose. Mike, it's great to see you. We've tried to have you on a couple times, and the schedules never quite worked out, but this time they did.
They did, and thank you, Chuck, for having me. It's great to be here as always, and it's an auspicious day, so I'm glad I was able to be here for this special occasion.
And you have an auspicious jacket on, too.
I do. I came straight from work and didn't have a chance to change. So
I love it. Usually I'm the guy that just jackets and ties on, so
just spiffed up a smidge, just try to class up the joint a little bit. No, I did run in the house about 30 minutes before taping, and I said to myself, I could put on, my Mac T-shirt or find something the brand appropriate, but since we're talking about a new fashion experience for the Apple brand, I figured it was time to just sort of up my game a little bit.
Will this be a consistent thing, you think, Mike?
Not a bit. Not a chance. No chance.
Well, guys, I thought we'd kind of do what Tim Cook a little bit did. We'll warm up with some of the, I don't know if they're lesser announcements, but they weren't the ones we were really waiting for, but they were kind of nice. The reduction of price on the Apple TV and the HBO subscription now that you can get directly, in fact, exclusively on Apple TV. Jeff, were you surprised at a price reduction on Apple TV?
I was. In fact, I was kind of surprised that Apple covered as much ground as they did, because usually, Apple does events and they're pretty focused, and we all knew this was going to be an Apple Watch thing, and so even though it didn't get a lot of play at first, having an Apple TV announcement and even having like a special guest appear really seemed to sort of come out of the blue. I don't know that anybody had seen that. Yeah.
Mike, how about you with the HBO announcement? That we've heard a lot of rumors about that up to this point, but now we have it confirmed, and it's exclusively on Apple TV.
Yeah, and that's a fascinating piece of it. I mean, HBO has a really interesting relationship with the television community, so to speak, with cable providers, satellite providers, and with the viewing public. As one of the oldest pay subscription services, they have a lot of clout. They have a lot of power within the television industry because they do produce content that people will go out of their way to consume and to get. With the HBO Go app and the HBO Go service, which have been around for a while, you've had the opportunity to get HBO programming on your Apple devices and other smart devices like the Roku and so forth. But this is a different kind of thing. Putting HBO over the top without a pay TV subscription and making it available as a solo offering, and pinning it for now to the Apple TV or Apple devices like iPads, that's a big deal. And it shows that HBO believes in Apple's ecosystem in a way that maybe not all not all pay providers of programming do believe in Apple's ecosystem.
You say for now. Do you foresee this as something that eventually will go widespread, or do you think Apple has a fair shot at keeping it exclusive, at least for a year or two?
It's hard to know what kind of arrangement they've made. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a 6 month to a year exclusive with Apple's on Apple devices, but longer than that, I wouldn't expect it to be that sticky. I think HBO is going to push to have this available as widely as possible, with the caveat that the wider HBO pushes the availability of the non-linked service, the service that you can get without a pay TV subscription, the harder it is going to be for them to maintain those relationships with satellite and cable providers that they need. It's a little bit like the original iPod. The fact that it was limited to working with the Mac meant that there were fewer squeals and yelps from the music industry because the potential addressable market was so small. This is the same thing in a way. Apple's hobby, the Apple TV, means that the total potential market for HBO Now is at the moment constrained. It's going to get bigger over time, and Apple dropping the price of the Apple TV means that for a very, very small cost of entry, you can get into the game.
I thought they obviously promoted Game of Thrones heavily.
Yes.
With an exclusive trailer. And I thought that was kind of interesting doing the math. So for $15 a month, I get the HBO Go, and for $69, I get a new Apple TV. So if I wasn't a subscriber, if I wasn't an Apple TV owner, this seems like a pretty good deal. And it might even push me, and I'm notoriously I'm not a TV watcher, but this might push me to sample a little bit more of HBO's content.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
I have a feeling that it'll probably push a lot of people, because I think there are a lot of people, and just, reading Twitter today, I know that's not very scientific, but there are a few people who are like, this could be the thing that I finally get rid of, insert name of big evil cable provider here. And, they can get shows where they can actually watch them in real time when everybody else is watching them and talking about them, and not have to, get bogged down by the entire cable subscription. Where, I don't know. I think everybody sort of feels like I have cable. I really only watch a small portion of it. I'm paying for a bunch of garbage, and whether that actually works out economically and everything's, fund other channels and all that, it still sort of feels like you're just getting dumped on. And so now being able to say, you know what, I really just want to watch HBO, and I want to, subscribe to a couple shows, maybe through iTunes, could push people, and definitely push others in the industry to think, okay, maybe this single subscription offering is real now, and we can jump into it.
Is this the grand experiment on HBO's side? Because Apple has had the ability to deliver this now for some time, but there was really nobody that I think everybody was that intensely interested in. Obviously, everybody's interested in HBO and some of their original programming. So is this the grand experiment for HBO to go direct? Anybody?
I think it is, but I think this has been part of HBO's strategy for some time, and you already could see with HBO Go that if it were not for the fact that there wasn't a good way for them to do it, and they were not sure what the potential of that channel was, they would have probably gone ahead with a standalone offering a little while ago. This is, I think, a marriage of convenience for both parties. Apple gets a flagship content provider to do something that you basically make something exclusive that you can't get anywhere else, and HBO gets the impossible to put a price on marketing real estate of being featured in an Apple keynote. Which, if you could put a number around what it cost, that's how many Super Bowl ads? I don't know, but it's got to be in the millions and millions of dollars in equivalent value for HBO. And okay, look. You're going to put your exclusive trailer for Game of Thrones and have Tim Cook introduce it to everybody. if I were HBO's VP of marketing, I would do that deal every day of the week and twice on Sunday, no question.
I have to confess, I hadn't exactly thought about it in comparing it to a Super Bowl commercial or anything like that. The value, the publicity value. I mean, because I don't think of HBO as needing publicity, but maybe they do.
Well, I mean, everybody does, but particularly if you're trying to build up a subscriber base from nothing, or build up a new paying subscriber base, a new revenue stream. I think probably the person to ask about this is Christina Warren, because she has the split brain, half entertainment, half tech brain, but well, not medically speaking.
Well, good.
But I don't know if anyone's ever tried to figure out what is it worth to have. Certainly, the folks who do app publishers who've been featured in Apple keynotes have a sense of what the value is to their business of getting that prime time exposure. But I don't know about how other brands that have been featured see that. I mean, I guess all the Pixar movies that Steve Jobs featured over the years. When Starbucks was in the original iPhone keynote, I don't know how much that by the way wasn't planned, or that was not something Starbucks as a brand had a connection to, but it's a very, very high profile moment, and you can't get it any other way. You can't get in every newspaper and every television show and every business channel in the world any other way than being in an Apple keynote.
You also have the fact that Apple is riding so high right now that you have that connection, you have that cachet. So it's like, HBO, all right, we got to treat them seriously because Apple likes them, and so there's inevitably a bit of that sort of sparkle that rubs off. Where say if it was the Food Network or UPN or somebody else, maybe that would provide a bump, or maybe it would just be like, here's this other toss away thing. But to have the head of HBO get up and say a few words on stage in front of everybody, that's like prime real estate. So
yep.
I think anybody that doesn't have an Apple TV should go out and get one now. I mean, there's just it becomes borderline impulse buy. I'm hoping they'll stock them at the counters at the checkout counters at Target. Just buy a couple pairs of sandals, shaving lotion, and an Apple TV. Why not?
Well, and that's a real thing too. I mean, as the married people will testify, that there is a line above which you cannot purchase something without having a conversation with your spouse that says, hey, I was thinking of getting this thing. And that line is somewhere around $100. Well, it depends on the family. In my family, it's somewhere around $100. Jeff, in your family, somewhere around $100.
Oh, yeah. You speak the truth.
So that's a thing. And to have it drop from that price point, I mean, the iPod Shuffle has always sort of been in that, in that sub-spousal notification zone. But there are very few Apple products that are. And so when the Apple TV drops below that magical $99 point, suddenly it's like, well, I just got it. I mean, I just bought an Amazon Fire Stick when they were doing a Prime deal on them, and they only cost $20. I just bought it. I didn't have a discussion with the whole family and sat down. It's like, okay, well, Daddy needs to talk to you about our budget and what we're going to invest in this year. I just got it, and it's great because my kids love the fact that they can, get their anime shows on Prime. But I didn't have to have that conversation. And now, if I didn't already own an Apple TV, I wouldn't have to have that conversation.
I also think one last thing is coming from Apple's standpoint, like they certainly don't need HBO, but HBO is a nice, high profile nab for the Apple TV because, the Apple TV, it may no longer officially be a hobby, but it's not this giant thing. What the Apple TV is now for Apple is this is the way to connect your home to all of your other devices and things. And so, yes, you might go out and buy it for $70 and then spend $15 a month to get HBO. But, guess what? When you're there anything you have on your phone, you can stream to it, and anything, all your music, you can stream to it. And suddenly it's not just this thing that plays HBO, it's this thing that works in the entire, ecosystem that Apple's been building. And so, and when you get a watch, your watch will be able to control it. So it's just sort of solidifying Apple's ecosystem and the way everything works together.
Before we leave this topic, I want to make sure that everyone notes that Mike has coined the term spousal notification zone, which I really like. I think there should be a trademark thing after that, Mike.
We'll work on that.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you should.
This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Harry's. Find affordable shaving gear that you'll love. And you can get $5 off your first purchase by using the code MacVoices at harrys.com. I'm very happy to welcome back Harry's as a sponsor of MacVoices. Why it makes me happy is because I use and love Harry's products every single day. No, seriously, I'm not just saying that. I use and love Harry's blades and razors for a couple reasons. First, they do what you want in a razor, give you an excellent shave, period. And that's the bottom line, right? Of course, to get to the bottom line, you have to buy the razors and blades. It's a mystery to me why this is such a hassle. Shaving gear is locked up in some kind of vault at the drugstore, so you have to ask permission to buy it? If you can find someone, that is. All a great big hassle, and who doesn't have enough hassle in their lives? With Harry's, you place your order online and your razors, blades, creams, and lotions arrive a few days later. Click, click, click. No security guards, no safes to crack. In fact, you can even sign up for a Harry's shave plan to have supplies sent to you automatically, making it even easier to be sure you never go for a new blade and not have one. On the way to the bottom line, you also have to look at price. After you go through all the hassle at the drugstore, you pay a premium price, with a capital P. Guess it's expensive to buy that safe and pay those security guards. With Harry's, you get excellent quality blades at a fraction of what the drugstore wants you to pay. How can they do it? Harry's cuts out the middleman, delivering blades from a factory in Germany that's been making blades for nearly a century. In fact, Harry's bought the factory. One more middleman gone. Along with the safe and the guards, of course. So back to the bottom line. Great shave, convenience, great price. That's Harry's. Get started now with a Harry's starter of a razor, 3 blades, and your choice of Harry's shave cream or foaming shave gel. I prefer the gel, but that's a story for another time. All that for only $15. And if you use my code, MacVoices, you get $5 off your first purchase. That means you can try the Harry's experience for only $10. I want you to go to harrys.com right now, look over everything, and get $5 off your first purchase with the code MacVoices. You're not going to be disappointed. Harry's. Fine, affordable shaving gear you'll love like I do. Welcome back, and thanks to Harry's for supporting MacVoices.
So let's move to the big topics. The first one, of course, being the new MacBook. The new MacBook, not Air, not Pro, just the new MacBook. And interestingly, it looked champagne on the screen to me, but it was gold, according to Phil Schiller. Mm-hmm. We've heard a lot about this as it's been rumored. The edge-to-edge keyboard. We obviously didn't know a lot of the other details, and some of it, we can go real deep, or we can just send folks to watch the keynote. But it strikes me as a pretty sweet machine, a pretty interesting price. I'm a little surprised that there aren't a few more high-end options, but then again, there may not have been room inside for them.
Yeah, that'd be my guess. I mean, they're going with an extremely power parsimonious processor to make that package work. They're using the stacked batteries. I mean, they're doing every single trick that they can possibly do to make that machine not only extremely power lean, but also fanless. I mean, when was the last? We've never had a fanless Apple notebook except maybe one of the Duos or the PowerBook, PowerBook 150. And I think those had fans. So none of them were fanless. But the notion that you could pack a Retina laptop into that form factor, and Retina, of course, implying a GPU that can handle that screen and that number of pixels, still get 9 hours of battery life, still get, all the functionality of an Apple sub notebook. It's pretty impressive. I don't know whether it's a perfect machine for everybody. And in fact, I just recommended to my cousin who emailed me today and said, hey, I have till April 14th to turn in my 13-inch Retina Pro that I just bought. Should I get this thing? I was like, I don't know. It really depends on your usage profile. It's such a departure from even the MacBook Air has more horsepower and more expandability. And when you're talking about the MacBook Air, that's saying something.
So, Jeff, is the selling point here, you think the screen? You think that's the key feature to this? Because we don't have a MacBook Air level machine with a Retina display at this point.
I think it is. I think it's having a really nice screen, having it be thinner and lighter. I mean, thinner and lighter is always, desirable. The keyboard, I think, is interesting. They went into a lot of detail about, it now has a butterfly switch instead of a scissor switch, and it's, like really they drilled down and deeply into that sort of thing. I don't know if that makes a big difference for people. I've never, had a lot of trouble typing on keyboards. Maybe some people have. Mostly, I saw it as Apple saying, like we've been doing some amazing engineering stuff, and we just have to share it with you. I think that the larger trackpad is interesting in that it has taptic feedback and a new technology for tapping different areas, all that stuff. But for people who are thinking about, wow, is this the machine for me? I think it's really going to be, hey, this is in my price range. It's small, it's light, it'll run for a long time. I think battery power is going to be huge, just for people who are like, used to carrying a power brick in their bag, because after, 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours, you're going to have to top it off. Maybe that's just not going to be the case. I mean, this is basically the iPad Mac in terms of battery power and how they're selling it. So I think that will appeal to a lot of people. I think for professionals, unless they really need thin and light, it's probably not going to be the machine. If for no other reason, then you can only put 8 gigs of RAM in it, and that's it. So, yes, Photoshop, Lightroom, some of those can work in that, but the space starts to get kind of tight.
And that's the point that surprised me. I guess it almost felt like they were trying to hold this to a certain level, and so it would not compete with the current line of Pros and whatever then the next line of Pros. And of course, everything but the 15-inch MacBook Pro Retina. Did I get that right? Saw an upgrade of some kind. So It felt like the bottom level pushed up a bit, and then everything but the very top level pushed up. So I'm hoping, for my personal usage, I want to see some of these changes come to the 15-inch Retina. But that's me.
Well, and that's a lot. You're not alone. But I think looking at these configurations, when we're talking about 1,300 for the 256 gig model and the 1.1 gig processor, and 1,600 for 512 of storage and 1.2 gig processor. That compared to the MacBook Air, 13-inch MacBook Air, where you're at, you're at $1,200, and then you can uptick to the more storage and more memory. I think it's meant to compete with the MacBook Air at the high end. The top config of the MacBook Air, if you take it up in memory and you take it up in storage to match the new Retina MacBook, is also $1,599. So it's, do you want a not as good screen and a faster processor, or potentially faster processor? You're trading off ports, you're trading off thinness and lightness, you're trading off quiet, and you're not getting that Retina screen. I have to see what the performance is like on the machine, but I think it's a very compelling potential, certainly second Mac, if not first Mac. And the single cable thing, I have to see it in action, but I love it in principle. I would miss my SD card slot. I think I would find that hard to give up. But
First of all, I have to say that Phil Schiller did such a great job, I thought, of introducing the terrorist battery thing. In fact, I thought the whole presentation, the way they talked about the smaller logic board and how they filled the rest of the machine pretty much with these odd-looking sized shaped batteries was spectacular, because it really does show that they're trying so hard. And it almost made you feel like, why isn't somebody else doing this? Why isn't somebody else using all this space? But you've hit it, and I'm kind of curious to see what Jeff thinks on the new USB connector, because it's not uncommon for me, even for a MacBook Air, to want to plug in a USB drive for some extra storage and my power cable, and that's that's a problem here.
Yeah, I think, well, my first initial reaction was like, I'm a little disappointed that there's no MagSafe component to this, because, with this cable, and I don't know if, maybe it comes out easily, but, if you have this plugged in somewhere, a dog, child can send this nice 2-pound thing flying. Then again, I think, because of all the battery life, the idea is going to be, okay, you really don't need this plugged in at all. Basically charge it during the night when you're charging everything else that has an Apple logo on it. That said, the way I use a laptop is usually, like right now I have it connected in my office. I have an external display that's hooked up. And so, it will potentially detangle a little bit of that, but that means I need to get an adapter that has, Thunderbolt, and it has, VGA and HDMI and all that good, USB hub and all of that. Again, I think it's really designed for somebody who is like, okay, you're a student, or you're a writer, you're a reporter, you're an executive who, flies a lot, and you have other people that have ports that can be, accessed, or other people whose machines have ports that can be accessed, that's what this is. This is the I don't really care about all that stuff because maybe I don't use it. I want thin and light, and I want it to be gold and shiny.
And or black. I mean, we finally have
or black. That's right.
The return of the Black Book. Don't call it a comeback.
Yeah.
It was never gone. I mean, since I was watching the live blogs and not the keynote, I actually missed that the other laptops had gotten the speed bump and Thunderbolt 2. And I mean, I have to say the 13, and I love my 13-inch MacBook Air. I use it every day. I'm 2 generations back now, so I don't get 12 hours of battery life. I get 4, maybe 5.
Yeah.
But 12 hours on the 13 is great. Just the fact is, and what Apple has done so effectively is the retinization of what we expect as technology users. I look at an iPad or I look at a MacBook Pro Retina, and my expectation of what is possible on a computer screen is forever tweaked. So now if I'm working on my 13-inch MacBook Air screen, which is a perfectly good screen, everything looks blurry. And I feel like my eyes are going crazy. And that is what this does. It pushes that experience, that fidelity into the slim and light, the 2-pound package where it's never been before. Once consumers see that, it's very hard to get them to back off it. There wasn't an option in that space up till now. The 9-hour battery life is comparable to the 11-inch MacBook Air. Really, the connectivity for me, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the Bluetooth keyboards, and I just lost the rechargeable batteries on my Magic Mouse. Finally gave up the ghost, so I don't relish that, but I do like the idea of having one cable I can plug in and dock it. Again, I really will need to see what VMware Fusion and 15 open Chrome tabs do to this machine. I don't imagine it'll be good. It'll be a bit of a horror show, but None of us here are necessarily the market for this machine, and I think that if we look at the kind of consumer who might be in the market for a $10,000 and up Apple Watch edition, to Jeff's point, this is the laptop that they will want to have with that watch.
They go together so well.
They really do.
That's just it.
Really do.
You're buying a computer to match your watch. Well,
Think about it. It's a $10,000 watch. You're buying everything to match the watch. Your towels should match.
But yeah, good point.
Apple's now selling a watch that cost more than my first car. So you know what? Everything should match.
Yeah.
New wardrobe.
Yeah.
Jeff, you were going to say?
Well, I was going to say that I've almost forgotten now, because now I'm thinking back to the first black PowerBooks that came out, and I was like, that looks exactly like the same kind of shape that echoes like the Porsche what was it, 959 or something that had just come out, and I admit I had those dreams. Yes, and I had that dream of like I could buy one of those, and I could, well, I never actually had the money for it, and I could buy a Porsche. They would go together so well, and then you wake up and you're like, wait, all these things cost money.
I just want to clarify that Jeff and I did not discuss props before the show. I really do have this just sitting under my desk. This is a bronze PowerBook G3.
I love that. I love that model.
Is that, Mike? Before you put it away, show the edge of that on the side. Is that the Blackbird? With the pop out,
it does have a pop out optical. Yes.
Oh yeah.
I love that machine. That was so versatile. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. I put a zip drive in one side. Yeah.
Yeah, you could do the zip drive. You could do the DVD. It had the block SCSI port on the back, and an S video out port. Possibly the least useful connectivity ever, along with the analog modem port. But beautiful.
What I think is interesting about the new MacBook is that, Apple, it's obvious given the technology that they showed. And, they also mentioned how this Retina screen, the way they've built it, it has the same brightness with consuming 30% less energy. It's pretty obvious they could have taken this and just made a Retina MacBook Air. Like all of the technology is there, even shrinking the logic board. But they decided to, do the Apple thing, which is, okay, yeah, we could do this. But what if we make it even thinner? And what if we, customize the batteries to fit the case better? And, why do we have to include all these other ports? It's just such a very Apple thing to do, saying, the MacBook Air is now sort of old, but it doesn't really seem old because it's, I think I see more MacBook Airs than anything because it's now the introductory one. So how can we make something that is cool and, probably, trend setting? And I have no doubt that we'll see this design migrate to the 15-inch and, other sizes. So, like just from that design standpoint, I think this was a very design heavy event. It's interesting to see Apple sort of telescope what it sees in the future and how it wants to push things.
I want to play devil's advocate for 1 minute here.
Okay.
And ask both of you, has Apple's obsession with thin gone just a little too far? I mean, at what point does it jump the shark and start reducing functionality, battery life, and obviously the battery life is not the issue here, but just to the point that it's too thin, whatever that means, that they're sacrificing something to make it thinner. Is this it, or do you think we still have a ways to go? Because this is an awfully thin machine.
I thought when the MacBook Air came out that it was going to be too thin. I thought when the iPad 2 came out, it was going to be too thin, and I was convinced when the iPod Touch came out, the first one, that it was going to be too thin. People were going to break it in half. So I've clearly demonstrated my inability to to determine what is too thin. I do know that Apple takes the sturdiness and the sort of dynamic response of the laptop when someone's typing on it. They take that pretty seriously, and they do test it. There's material science that goes into stiffening the case. There's a lot of thought around that part of the experience, the tactile and the kinesthetic part of the experience. So I don't think we're there yet. It would not at all surprise me some years from now to see an Apple membranous, quasi laptop, or the iPad actual Air, or the iPad Plasma, where the entire device experience is essentially one sheet of glass, and there is no back. Much like, you can see them going that way with the iMac. The iMac is designed to be that big pane of glass with no computer there. And the number of times people have said, "Where's the computer?" when they see an iMac over the years. But I think that for the laptop, Apple's pretty careful about that, and they won't release something in the subnotebook, family that doesn't have a good feeling of heft and feel slightly heavier than it actually is.
I am happy to echo that, because the materials are really everything. Because when you're saying like are things getting too thin, I think what we're often saying is, are things too brittle, or will this easily break because it's so thin? And what they've been doing with their materials and the design of taking everything out of single slabs of aluminium. It's, yes, they're very, very thin, but they are still very robust. And so I say keep going on thin and light, because it still works in terms of being strong. It's not brittle. There are other companies who have made thin things that they have lots of different parts, and they're kind of shifty, and it doesn't really hold up as well. But B, and I shouldn't have said A because I just forgot B.
Daylight savings time, folks. Won't you please? Your contributions can help prevent DST vapor lock.
I think it's also that sense of I think that there's a bit of imagination that goes into owning something like that, because for lack of a better way to say this, like, you buy something like the new MacBook and you use it, but like, you always have that tactile sense of, hey, isn't this cool? Because I remember with the MacBook Air, one of the commercials that they showed just like one finger lifting it up to open it, and I was like, all right, that's been staged, because when you do that, the whole thing will come up. And sure enough, I tested it out, and like, they balanced the hinge and the weight and everything, so damn it, you could actually just lift the thing open with one finger and not have to hold the other part down. And there's just that sense of wow, I'm using something that's kind of from the future, and it's great. And then when you're actually using it, then you're absorbed in the operating system and all that, and you pack it up, you put it in your bag, and it's like thin and light. So it's hard to sort of put this into words, but I think that there's actually an ongoing tactile satisfaction that goes along with a lot of Apple products, because it's not just that, oh yeah, here's that box that I bought. It's that, no, here's this thing that's still really cool and light, and I like working with it with my hands. I like manipulating it.
Good summary. Good summary.
Thank you. That was B.
That was B?
Actually,
Okay.
Yeah, it did come back around.
Good. Before we move to the Apple Watch, the one last thing I just wanted to ask your opinions on, because until I get my hands on it, I don't have one, is this new trackpad design. I mean, it almost sounds like we're going to learn to use the trackpad, not all over, but we're just going to have a lot more options to use it with what do they call it? Force press, I think.
Force touch.
Force touch. Click.
Or I think it's force touch.
Force touch. Perhaps the internet will tell us.
Yeah.
Certainly after this airs, we'll hear.
Yes. I like it. I mean, because it looked like it was contextual in nature, that depending on what you want to do, and it's one more time you don't have to take your hands off the trackpad to access a feature. I mean, the one thing it looked like it's duplicating what we now know as Quick Look, to just now you just force whatever on a file and pop up a preview. So I like it. I just need to learn how to use it and see what it's capable of.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those features, possibly like expose or mission control, or even going back the 2-finger click, that is dependent on when you learn to use a Mac and how your muscle memory developed, whether or not you will ever get value out of it. And it also has it's a little bit like natural scrolling in that it's only available when you're using your Mac, and when you go to someone else's Mac that doesn't have the force press touchpad, you're going to be your cues won't work. So, I think, I still go to other people's computers and I scroll the wrong way, because they haven't turned on natural scrolling. But I think that the value of those kind of gestures and those kind of interface little tidbits is really for people who are buying that as their first laptop, or they're using the Mac for the first time. For those of us who already know how to do those things the old way or the slow way, it's going to take a lot longer for us to get value out of it. We'll try it a couple times, then we'll forget about it. At least I will. If I ever get that laptop.
Says the man who pulled the old G3
I'm telling
MacBook Pro.
I can tell you how to swap out that battery, that optical drive for a zip drive like Jeff did, but I wouldn't tell you how to force press. That's sorcery. That's bad mojo.
Jeff, how about you? Does it strike you as useful, or just a one more evolutionary thing?
I think potentially useful. I think they're tying into the fact that more people are using devices where they point with their finger, and Apple is not interested or not willing to jump into actual touchscreen laptop experience, and so you have this sort of happy medium where somebody who is already accustomed to doing stuff with their fingers on their phones, and then again on the watch, that force touch will expand to be able to be available on, I fully expect the next iPad and the next iPhone will also have force touch. And so, in a year and a half, maybe you'll be doing things that really aren't what he showed to just sort of pop up contextual information, but maybe, other applications will take advantage of, here's what you can do with a force press or something like that. So, it's interesting. I sort of rebel at the fact that I've spent the last several years telling people that it doesn't matter how hard they push on their screen, it's not going to make a difference. Dang it. If you tap harder, it doesn't matter, and now it will. And so they're going to be like, "See, told you." But
yeah. It's like Apple has Sherlocked thousands of IT people. I know. What are you doing now? Stop pushing it. No, they told me press harder. What are you gonna break it? Infuriating.
So, last question. The obvious question: if you were going to order one today, which color? Jeff?
Black.
Ooh. Mike?
Black. Wow.
I'm torn between black and silver, but I want to look at the space gray. I like them all. Not a gold person, not a gold, but those all were. They all look sharp.
The gold is awfully pretty, and it's probably going to be unbelievably popular. But yeah, I'm more the black sit in the shadows kind of guy.
If it looks anything like its pictures, it's going to be gorgeous. and technically it is the space gray. It's not a black. Is there an actual black model? I think it's
No.
the
No,
space.
I think I think I said it wrong. Yeah.
No, you said it right. Jeff and I were the ones who were wrong. But it's space gray. Yeah. It's near black. It's the O'Douls of black MacBooks. But yeah, it looks right. I think it for those of, again, for us graybeards, it looks the way it should. It looks the way a laptop should, or not literally graybeard. I'm sorry.
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
Speak for yourself.
I know what color it would be if it came in. Being honest about it.
You're okay with that, yeah?
I'm okay with that.
That's good.
That's what it is.
That's good.
But it's a gorgeous machine, and I think also, credit to the guys who originally picked up on the USB-C potential connector, which just a few months ago seemed really radically odd. I think 9to5 picked it up a second and reinforced it. I'm trying to remember who was it. I think it may have been Mac Rumors, or it may have been MacJury, but someone very, very early on identified that as a potential config, and I think a lot of us who were looking at that said that's kind of crazy, but here it is. So
you never know.
You never know.
Yeah, today's crazy as Apple's tomorrow.
That's got to be on a T-shirt.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this whole show is coming up with all kind of good things. Well, let's move to the feature presentation, the Apple Watch. And Mike, I got to tell you, I think one of those Edition watches would look great with that jacket.
I don't deny it. I don't even know where my Pebble is at the moment. I think I took it off. I hid it. No, I think that the price points were comprehensible. I don't think anybody's jumping quite out of their skins yet. We'll have to wait for tomorrow to really see how that plays out. But I think folks like John Gruber and some other people who were looking at the pricing made a good case for that $10,000 starting point for the Edition, and sort of soften the ground a little bit on that. I think without that pre-chatter, it would have been a very surprising price. But as it was like, oh yeah, $10,000, that makes sense. I think the middle edition, the Apple Watch, non-edition, but the middle SKU, the middle tier, is actually a bit more affordable than I was thinking it would be. And as someone who's been wearing a Pebble for a while now, I love the idea of being able to respond and reply via Siri and via touch from the watch, because the Pebble has given me back range of motion in my shoulder. I mean, it has cut down on the number of times I dip into my pocket for my phone by anywhere from 25 to 50%, just by relocating most of the notifications to my wrist. So if you take that and then add the quick reply functionality, or the on my way, 5 minutes late, that's huge. And that is actually, I think it was Matt Panzarino at TechCrunch last week talked about the fact that there are very few technologies that can give you back time. That there's nobody can buy no billionaire can buy a better phone than the one that you can get at the Apple Store. But what people who have more discretionary income can carve back time. They can have people do other things for them. They can have private cars or private jets. They can reclaim those minutes and hours that we spend getting from place to place and doing things for ourselves. What the Apple Watch does, in part, is it gives you back some of that time. So what's that worth? Is it worth $500? I think for most people it probably is.
Jeff, I know my only reaction. My reaction to the Sport was good. I think the middle ground was good. I think the Edition, that's for a very specific class of people. My friend Eric Bernskill said, though, on Twitter today that he didn't really think that the Apple Edition had to sell well. It just needs to be there to give that, not illusion, but that sense of value to all the other levels. And I thought that was a really interesting observation.
Oh yeah, I would agree. I mean, there are a couple things going on. One, Apple realizes that there are some people who will pay anything for anything, and um, the most expensive Apple Watch right now is $17,000. And if you are seriously considering, buying something, a watch for $17,000, a first generation technology watch, for you, $17,000 is probably not that big of a deal. I don't really foresee very many people deciding that they are going to, save up to buy an Apple Edition watch. But you can definitely save up to buy an Apple Watch, the steel version, and maybe also get the Milanese loop or some of the other fancier bands for it. But I think that Apple knew that in order to come out with a watch, it has to be a watch, and otherwise it's another wearable gadget. It's a Casio, it's a whatever. And Apple doesn't want it to be sort of lumped into we're just taking the same technology and moving it to a different part of your body, because they knew that they have this opportunity to be like, okay, this can be a style style thing. This can be a prestige thing. This can be the thing that your law firm buys for their best client with it, something engraved on the back, like, that's $10,000. It probably gets billed to the client anyway. And so
comes around.
Like they know they can do it, but it also, having the Edition brings more prestige to the rest of the line, even if it's just the sport version, which I think if the Edition didn't exist, the sport version would still be an impressive piece of work. But now it's like part of that nice family of products. I think it was also interesting that the way Tim Cook presented these, when he when he was doing the pricing, they spent a bit of time on how the aluminum is made, and also how the steel was made, and didn't show a video about the gold. And he basically spent very little time saying, the Edition, it's wonderful, and it's going to start at $10,000. It's going to be in limited supply and available through select retailers. And then sort of moved on to like the greater good of Apple Watch in general. And I think that was very much very deliberate, because Apple is still the company that is for the rest of us. And so putting the focus on these two more attainable levels was a way to not sort of get sandbagged by the whole, Apple only caters to people with a lot of money, while also being able to cater to people with a lot of money. So I thought it was a very savvy move that I don't think they'll get much credit for.
I think they're going to get there's going to be a lot of laughter and a lot of second guessing about the videos for the aluminum and the stainless steel. But I thought it was, stepping back, I thought it was brilliant, because you didn't get the impression that the Apple Sport Edition is just a low-end throwaway kind of watch, and you really want that middle. It's like, okay, these are both really finely designed, finely thought through pieces at different price points with different characteristics, not necessarily one better than the other, just different. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant, and I don't think they needed to show a video about the gold.
And may not have been able to. I mean, it may be so proprietary a process that they didn't want to expose it. So.
Well, there actually is a video of the gold. They yeah, if you go to the Apple Watch site, there's an option in the pop down that just says films, and you see, I mean, they made a nice luscious video of how they make it. It doesn't actually give very much away about like what it's comprised of. It's more like here's how we pour it, and it's like tested for its purity, like all that fancy stuff. It's beautiful to watch, as are the other ones. So like it was there. They just didn't need to telegraph that during the keynote.
I mean, look, I'm looking at the gold watch now, and you're right. I had not realized that. I had not thought about the fact that the gold film was on the website, but that's a gorgeous watch. I mean,
It is.
that gold watch is quite desirable. But I think the point about the market segmentation is well taken, because you, for most of us, the choice is going to be between the budget sport and the more fashion conscious standard, and having two choices means that we have something to aspire to, when in fact, even though there are technically three choices, for most of us, as was said, there are not three choices.
Yeah.
It just isn't realistic. So it's going to be very interesting, I think, to see the Apple Watch Edition in the wild. Yes. I'm really looking forward to how TMZ and Vogue and Cosmopolitan and People and Us and how that gets perceived, how many pictures we see of famous people wearing the Apple Watch Edition versus famous people wearing the regular Apple Watch or the Apple Watch Sport. Chrissy Turlington was wearing a Sport during her video or her half marathon, if I'm not mistaken. So that's good enough. If that's good enough for supermodels, slash save the world activists, it's probably good enough for the rest of us.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the fact that Tim Cook wears a Sport,
Well, Tim Cook is a sporty guy,
Well, that's true. Yeah.
His tweet, by the way, today, I think best troll. Oh my God.
Which one?
The one, slept in an hour today to rest up for the event, got up at 4:30.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Just, you've got to stop.
One thing that I admit I was a little taken aback by, because I started to look at the bands, and the bracelet band is $499, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. I mean, they talked a little bit about how precise it was and all that, and that's great, but that was the one that I wanted right up to the point that I saw the price, and it's like, I'm not sure I can justify $450, $500 for a band to go with a watch that is $350, $399. That just, that's me. I would have thought the Milanese Loop would have been a lot more expensive the way they talked about it originally. Now it's like that may be the reasonably priced luxury band.
I mean, they all look good. I think, my challenge is finding one that's not going to irritate my wrist, because whenever I wear a watch, I find over time that it chafes and it finds spots that are no longer comfortable. And my Pebble's no exception. So I personally think that the Link bracelet is going to pull hair out of my arm on a regular basis. And, Jeff, I fully expect that edition 1.1 of the book is going to have, an appropriate test lab report for which bands pull the most hair out of your arm.
Yes. Yeah, well, I have a bald spot on my arm, actually. Yeah, you're right.
We'll have to see what Apple can provide. I don't think I'm going to be, dropping a few grand just for testing.
We should go to the store, come in, go to the store with a copy of the book and say, hey, I'd like to try on all the bands. Please. This is for science, and, see what they say. I mean, it is surprising the cost of particularly that band. But, I think they're relatively transparent about it. That's the thing. It's like not that you're heading into this saying, well, I'm surprised that the stainless steel case with the stainless steel Link bracelet is $1,000, because that the band by itself is $500. So there's no degree of opaqueness in that. The watch is the same watch, and you're buying up in terms of how you're going to connect it to you.
The buying experience, and thank you for bringing it up, Mike, because I think it's going to be interesting how now you're going to be able to go in, you're going to get to see them, you're going to get to maybe strap one on your wrist before you have to try to buy one. online. And I think obviously this is brilliant because it's such a personal thing. You're bringing up pulling hairs out of your arm, and how many of us have ended up with watch bands in the past. If you're a watch wearer, I certainly have been all my life. And it's amazing how uncomfortable a band can be, or what a difference it can make. So the fact that I can go in there, put it on, have it sized, and just determine how it feels on my wrist before I have to worry about that first day order. I want to get my pre-order in, or I want to get my order in.
Yeah.
I think this is fantastic, and I don't know if that's Angela Arendt's deal, or if this was just the only way they could figure out to do it, but I think it's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, and necessary. I mean, there is no globally successful watch brand that doesn't have some sort of high-end retail presence, or verging on high-end. And it's true for Swatch, it's true for Tissot, it's true for even Bulova and Rolex, and all and Patek Philippe. They all have that in-store experience, and I just wonder what's going to happen when somebody walks into the Apple store, Lancaster Park City Mall, and says, "I'm here to try on the rose gold edition." I don't know what that experience will be like. I would be fascinated to see it in action. And it may be that they say, "Hey, we don't have that. you can't buy that here." And they back up the Brinks truck to the back of the store and load them out. I don't know.
Well, I think they said that they certainly implied, if not said outright, that the editions are not going to be available.
They're going to be very limited.
Yeah, and not in the Apple stores necessarily, but at fine retailers or some such phrase.
I mean, I would expect that some flagship Apple stores will carry them. I would expect that probably one in China, at least one or two in China, will carry them. I would expect them to be in. I would expect them to be in the high-end Apple store. Like, you should be able to go into the Cube, the Fifth Avenue Cube, and buy an Apple Watch edition. Mm-hmm. That may be the only place in Manhattan, the only Apple store in Manhattan where you can buy one. But I would expect that would be the case.
Yeah.
Jeff, how about the function demonstration? I thought that was particularly effective. Obviously, this is someone who's very steeped in the Apple Watch and knows how to use it, but it really did give a decent use case. I mean, I can't say that I saw myself doing all the things with the Apple Watch, but I'm with Mike. I've worn a Pebble now for over a year and have become somewhat addicted to having that information on my wrist. Now to have functions on my wrist takes it to a whole new level.
Well, I really like the way Kevin Johnson, how
Kevin Lynch or Kevin Johnson?
Kevin Lynch, sorry. All right. How he like the whole approach was sort of stepping through an average day as to how this would actually be used. Because it would be really easy to say, hey, it can do this wild thing that might happen once, and so really grounding that in the sense of like how will you actually use this, and how effortless it can be to respond to a notification, or check in for a flight, things like that, that are just like they address little pain points that people have, whether it's dealing with paper or working with a watch. I mean, with a phone. So I enjoyed that. I also really liked the fact that they showed a bit more from third parties, what third parties can do. So it's not just the handful of things that Apple is pushing. It's also all the other cool stuff, like, hey, go to your hotel and just wave your hand in front of your door because you're too drunk to actually use the card to get into the door.
I have to say
that wasn't actually said, but
it's implied. That was one where one of my colleagues said, with 18 hours of battery life and that Starwood app, I've been on business trips that have taken longer than 18 hours, and I've gotten to that hotel, and that watch would be dead as a doornail unless you put it into power save mode. So it was a valid point. But I am fascinated to see what the third-party app developers are going to do, what the enterprise app developers are going to do. Unfortunately, I have to run at this point, because my non-existent watch is telling me it's time to go.
You just got a buzz.
I just got a phantom buzz. But I think a really fascinating day all around, and I think a lot of potential Apple customers who have not thought about Apple as a luxury brand or as a lifestyle brand in the same way, in the way that they would think about a BMW or a Rolex, are now thinking about the company in a different way.
Agreed. Mike, thanks for taking the time.
Yes.
Great to see you.
My pleasure.
Just before you go, where can folks find you?
Oh gosh, mostly on the Twitters, Mike T. Rose, but also on my very occasional podcast with Kelly Guimont, which is The After Show. That's at aftershowpodcast.com, or on Twitter as _aftershow. We may be doing a show late tonight. It's already 9:15 on the East Coast, but we're going to try and get one in as well. But thanks for having me, Jeff. Good to see you. Chuck, talk to you soon.
Good to see you.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Take care.
Bye.
So now we can talk about it.
Good. Wow, that guy.
Yeah.
That guy, he's like so smart and well spoken, and yeah.
And with the jacket.
Yeah. Next time I gotta wear a jacket.
He brought up the, as he left, he gave us fodder for discussion. He brought up the 18-hour battery life, which seems to be so much more than everybody was predicting, which I thought was great. And with all due respect to Mike, he's not here to defend himself. Yeah, I've had days like that too, but it's like designing so many things, just for that small group, or that unique little situation. I mean, it's almost going to be sooner or later, and it's not going to be later. Somebody's going to come up with a battery that can be, connected to this thing to charge it. Just the very same way we have portable batteries that plug into your iPhone or your iPad. So is that ideal? No, but if it honestly does hold up for 18 hours, that's pretty darn good, and I think I think that's going to satisfy the vast majority of users.
Yeah, I think so too. And I also think, one of the things you can buy from Apple is, a little Apple Watch charger. And so I imagine that, you'll have people who just sort of regularly carry these little, battery pack chargers. If it's going to be a long day, you have that in your bag. They're much lighter now, so that you can, top it off for a short amount of time. One of the interesting things that I just saw on Twitter, that is on Apple's site somewhere, that actually recharging the watch is supposed to be, like, I think from dead, or from almost zero, it's only going to take an hour and a half to get 80% of the charge, and then maybe 2.5 hours to top that off. So, although we think of it as, okay, you can just charge it overnight, that sort of makes us, I think, oh, well, that means it's going to take 6 to 8 hours to charge, and that's just not the case. So, I would imagine that it'll be pretty easy to either squeak out a good amount of battery power over a long day, or, you'll have 20 or 30 minutes where you can take it off, attach it to a little charger, give yourself a little bit more juice. We'll have to see. I think a big part of it will be how well third-party apps can, minimize the interaction between the phone and the app, and how much battery that takes up, since it's all, wireless, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth stuff. But Apple seems to, they seem to have a good handle on making sure that, the Facebook app, hopefully, we'll all cross our fingers, isn't going to just sort of take over and say, hey, I need to talk to the Apple Watch every, 2.4 milliseconds, and just kill the battery.
I think it's going to be real interesting to see just what you said, the ramp up to using the watch apps. Again, the demo today was fantastic. But I don't envision any of us right out of the gate knowing how and being comfortable doing all these things. I think we're going to get there, and I think we'll get there probably faster than a lot of us realize. Yeah. But that too is going to stretch the battery life, because you know how it is. Even my iPhone 6 Plus, I can kill the battery in a day. of heavy usage, but that means I'm using it all the time. And so I don't quite perceive this. So again, if the advertised battery life, if it's not like the old days where all hardware manufacturers kind of stretch the truth a little bit, if it really is that, that's going to take care of us, a lot of us, for the average day.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else on the Apple Watch or any of the Apple Watches, I should say, that really struck you, the features or the way they were presented?
I'm trying to think. I mean, it was well done. I think that I'm trying to decide if this was an event. Well, so, like, one thing that sort of struck me was that we didn't really learn very much that was new about the watch in terms of its features. I mean, we learned more about battery life. That was great. We learned pricing. We learned availability. But there was no like, hey, we wanted to wait until now to reveal this great new feature. Apple sometimes does that. Sometimes they'll hint at something that they hadn't mentioned before, and so this was really an event that I think was really meant to sort of push the tide of, okay, like there's a lot of interest swelling, and here is a little bit more detail of how you use this in a daily situation, and how this is actually practical for you, rather than here's this thing that's really cool and that you might forget about in a couple months or something like that. So it was almost more of a reinforcement event in terms of the Apple Watch, to sort of say, okay, you probably think you need one of these, and now we're going to really drive the point home. Here's why you really need it, and here's how to get it.
I agree. I think the one other thing that we can take away from today, though, is that I'm not sure we're ever going to be able to look at an Apple event like this again and be convinced that it's going to be, pretty much a one product event. I mean, this new MacBook, it looks fantastic. The HBO thing that we discussed, we didn't even get to touch on the research kit.
The research kit, yeah.
Yeah, and some of the early stuff, which was described by someone on Twitter, and I'd love to give credit, but I don't remember, as very dry but very important. And I think that's the way it is. So there was a lot of stuff to chew on here today, and when the September October events come, whenever, or the WWDC events, I don't think we can assume that it's always just going to be about this or that. You're always going to wonder now.
Yeah. Which, boy, that just plays right into Apple's strengths of making you wonder, making you think, okay, well, for the next thing, are they going to announce something, else completely different? I think I love the fact that the research kit even got some time at all, because it's just one of those things that actually says a lot about Apple, and the sense of, yes, we're Apple, we're making products, we're making profits, like we're really at the top of our game, but we're not just doing this so that Johnny Ive can ride in a better Bentley. Like there's actual social. I don't know if responsibility is overstating it, but Apple and Tim Cook are very much saying, look, we can do something about all this stuff. There are millions of people with iPhones, and all the iPhones have access to all of this, personal health data. Why not do something with that has a positive effect, and we'll do it in a way that is not creepy, and we don't see your data, and all the privacy is locked down, et cetera, but why not try for that sort of thing? Because they can, and because they have partners who would kill to make some specific app or something to be featured by Apple. So I really like that they are going above and beyond just, hey, we're selling stuff and it's really cool stuff and you'll be cool if you buy it. It's, Apple could totally do that, and they could totally get away with it and still make lots of profits, but they're in it for more, and I think that's great.
And yeah, we saw some speed bumps and some enhancements of that kind to some of the MacBooks today, MacBook Airs, and the 13-inch Retina Pro.
Oh.
But I'm with you. They're pushing these innovations, whether you agree with them, whether you don't. It's not fair of us to judge until we get our hands on them. But they really are trying to push things forward, and I love that. And you're right. It's not just them telling you you'll be cool if you buy our product. It's like, here's what it is. You can kind of decide, but we think it's really cool. And it is. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you.
Jeff, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I'm sorry Mike had to run early, but I'm glad we got a chance to chat. And for some reason, I think we'll be chatting again soon.
I hope so. We should.
I think so. We
should talk.
So, yeah. So look for Jeff coming to another edition of MacVoices near you. Jeff, thanks so much. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Folks, let me know what Apple Watch you're going to get. I'm really curious. Chuck at MacVoices.com. They're going to be... I know I've got to go and look at them. I haven't decided. I thought I had decided before they came out, and now with the price points and some of the new information, I've got to rethink it. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get an edition now. Until the next time, this is the Mac.
Saying that to be modest.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You can do wonders with spray paint. Folks, this is the MacJury on MacVoices. We'll be back again soon. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the MacVoices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest MacVoices news from our front page or at MacVoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free MacVoices magazine on Flipboard by visiting MacVoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.